Chapter 2, Meeting the Castaways. Meeting the Castaways has been a most humbling journey for me. I have learned there are multitudes of castaways in the heavens. Some have returned to Earth. Clearly, this is the largest group of innocent victims suffering trauma and eventual loss of life we have ever known. The many accounts I have received are amazing and even poignant. Some contributors wrote their experiences and sent them to me. With others, I took notes as they shared their story in person or on the phone, then presented them with a written version for their approval. Now, through their own accounts, meet the castaways. Ned, I should have known these children. In 1995, Brent and I attended a symposium in Connecticut at the University of Hartford. Following our presentation, I happened to walk into a lecture by Ned Doherty. He introduced himself as an East Coast, college-educated real estate broker and businessman. The details he shared in his lecture about his near-death experience mesmerized me because of the fact that he met his children in heaven, his aborted children. Never had Ned imagined such a possibility. Aborted souls still live?
I was neither agnostic nor atheistic. I was too busy being a hedonistic and materialistic nightclub owner to be bothered with such things. That all changed on a hot July 2nd, 1984. In a moment of rage, I attacked and tried to strangle a business associate. Then all of a sudden, I was the one who could not breathe. I felt my lungs collapse, my heart stopped beating, and fell into a state of unconsciousness. The next thing I knew, I was in an ambulance hearing a paramedic say, "I have no vitals, we're losing him." Suddenly, I found myself floating up out of the ambulance and into a tunnel of light. When I reached the end of that tunnel, I found myself enveloped in an intense and loving light. I believe I found myself in the presence of God. During this experience, I watched a kaleidoscopic review of my life. I saw glimpses of the future of my life. I could not possibly tell you everything I experienced that night in today's brief forum. I found myself in the presence of a beautiful, radiant, and angelic being. She became known to me as the Lady of Light. At one point during my experience, the Lady of Light showed me a small group of toddler-aged children playing in a heavenly garden. At first, I focused my attention on two of the children who were to the right of the group. They drew my attention because they had turned and were directing their attention toward me. Although I perceived that one was a boy and the other a girl, I was more observant of their identical appearances. Later on, I would understand that they were twins. There were several more toddlers playing in the group. As I focused my attention on each of them, they looked directly and longingly toward me, as if they were seeking some acknowledgement or understanding from me. I perceived that I should have known these children, but I was confused by the scene. I conveyed to the Lady of Light that I needed to understand the scene before me and that I was confused by it. The Lady of Light responded by introducing me to another scene. I became fully involved as a personage in this scene, emotionally filled with tremendous love, joy, and pride. I was standing with a group of people who I did not immediately recognize, except for a handsome young man dressed in a cap and gown. The scene was on an academic campus, and it was a bright, sunny, and glorious day. I was filled with love, joy, and pride for the young man who was celebrating his graduation. I was quickly back in the heavenly garden and filled with questions. I conveyed to the Lady of Light that I wanted to know the meaning of these visions. I did not have any children, nor did I plan on having children. I thought of children as an inconvenience and a nuisance. They had no place in my life as far as I was concerned. I was perplexed by my reaction to the scene of the young man at his graduation. During that moment, I experienced emotions that I had never known before, emotions that only a father could know. But I was not his father, or so I thought. As far as I was concerned, I did not have any children. The prospect of such a long-term commitment was actually frightening to me. As I conveyed those thoughts and emotions, the group of children slowly vanished, disappearing before my eyes. I immediately felt an excruciating loss, a terrible, heart-wrenching, and aching pain. I was feeling the pain of the loss of these children. I then realized who these children were. During my earthly life, the opportunities to have children were presented to me on several occasions. Since I did not view children as being a part of my life, and because I perceived that these children would be inconveniences in my life, I chose not to have them. I chose to be part of a decision to abort them and not bring these children into the world. Clearly, I could now see that these children were not choices. I realized that they were the spirits or souls that were intended to be my children during my earth life. They were the opportunities that I had decided were inconveniences. I pondered the scene I had just witnessed for what seemed like a long period of time. Then a small boy appeared in the garden from the direction of the Lady of Light. The boy was very strong and full of life. He had blonde hair that was almost golden and the biggest blue eyes I have ever seen. I perceived that the child was being shown to me in a protected environment because I would also be given the opportunity in the future to protect a little boy. I perceived that this boy was to be that opportunity. I turned to the Lady of Light and conveyed to her that I wanted to know who this boy was. What was the significance of the scene before me? I didn't have children. I didn't anticipate having children. Was this little boy to be my son? The Lady of Light responded, "Truly, he is a son of God." I found myself being sent back to my body. I didn't want to be back here, but God didn't want me up there either. And it was His decision, not mine. As I came back from death, I was told that I was coming back with a mission in life. I didn't know what that mission was at first, but I now find that each and every day it is being defined for me a little more clearly. I know that I have a destiny. On April 7th, 1991, I became a daddy. My son's name is Michael Christopher. He is named after his grandpa and also after the Archangel Michael. He is the luckiest little boy in the world because I am a great daddy. I was present in the delivery room when Michael came into the world. What an experience it was. What a miracle. The miracle of life. As I watched Michael being born and his strong little body struggle to stay alive, as his soul breathed its first breath, I felt a radiance of energy, a life force of energy fill the delivery room. I felt a rush of wind roll by my ears, carrying a message. It was a message I remember I heard from the Lady of Light so many years before. Truly, he is a son of God.
Kelly, you will never forget this lost opportunity. I first met Kelly, a young wife and mother, when referred by a friend. I initially interviewed her concerning a pre-birth experience she had with her first child, a child conceived when she was young and single. I included it in my first book, Life Before Life. The following is an additional, deeply moving experience she chose to share with me.
Several years ago, I had a near-death experience that awakened within me spiritual sensitivities which I now use to help others. I work as a counselor. One day, I received an urgent call from a mother who had been referred to me by a former client. An appointment was arranged for the following day. A very anxious mother arrived with her husband and 16-year-old daughter. When the door was closed and we were all seated, the mother began, "Our daughter is pregnant." She became choked up and for moments could not speak. When she regained her composure, she continued, "We love our daughter and we love her baby. We want to help raise this child, but our daughter wants an abortion. Please help us find a way to resolve this." The echo of her words touched me when there suddenly appeared to my eyes an adorable girl about age 6. The scene was so vivid that I still recall it in detail. She stood above and behind her intended teenage mother. The little girl was blonde with brown eyes. She wore a beautiful frilly dress with lace at the collar, the sleeves and the bottom of the skirt. Even her white ankle socks had lace at the top. And her smile! The child expressed telepathic joy that it was her time to come to earth after an eternal wait. She radiated a profound love, a heavenly love, for the 3 individuals seated before me. My unusual vision was interrupted by the 16-year-old insisting, "I'm too young to be a mother. I'm going to have an abortion." These words pierced the hearts of the anxious grandparents, who were obviously eager to raise and love this child, whether their daughter wanted her or not. I looked back up at the little girl hovering in the air above her chosen earth family. She did not move, but her countenance fell from radiant smile to downcast sorrow as she implored, "Please help me. Tell my mother I'm here and she promised. This may be my only chance to come to her." It was an anguished plea, and then she was gone. Somewhat shaken, I attempted to convey the message. But how do you tell an angry, scared 16-year-old you had just seen the spirit of her daughter? Cautiously, I explained. I nearly died once and my spirit went to heaven. Since returning, I sometimes see spirits. The child within you is an adorable little girl. A few moments ago, she appeared in this room, standing in the air behind you. She wants you to know how much she loves you. She has waited a long time to come, and you promised her when you were friends in heaven that she could come to your family. Bringing her to earth will be a great blessing to you. Being pregnant at 16 is not a blessing, she snapped back at me. It was apparent her mind was made up. In a final attempt to reach her in behalf of her unborn child, I asked that she go home and pray about the message I had passed on from her daughter. This is between you and God, but this much I can tell you. If you go through with your decision to abort, you will never forget this lost opportunity. God will continue to love you no matter what, but you will lose the blessing of a daughter. For over 2 hours, I tried to help the teenager appreciate the plea from her unborn daughter, but to no avail. She left firmly resolved to abort the baby. Through a friend, I later learned that she followed through. It was a sad conclusion.
Mary, I saw untold numbers of abortion babies. Mary published her experience online, and I learned of it through a friend. Mary, a mother of 3, was working as a lone clerk at a store when she was robbed and beaten.
I was on the floor, and the blows just kept coming. I held my breath, thinking they would think I was dead or passed out. Just as my lungs seemed on fire and I needed air, my 9-month-old daughter's face came before me, and a calm came over me. A very small amount of total darkness, and then I found myself walking upward through a tunnel that had a bright white light at the end. There was an angel walking on my right side. I was told he was my guardian angel. I saw my entire life as though I was watching a movie. There was an invisible border you could not see, yet you understood not to cross it, or you could not leave. While in heaven, I had the uneasy feeling that I had been there too long, and my babies on earth would need me soon. Then I saw babies as far as the eye could see, and then some. They were our precious abortion babies, said the angel. Untold numbers of abortion babies. The next thing I knew was being back on the floor with the pain and the blows. I had lost a lot of blood and could hear the crunching of bone in my head when I moved. I still cannot walk on gravel because of the sound that reminds me of crunching bone.
Mary further explained she had been given the choice whether or not to return to earth. Although she loved the peace and beauty of heaven, she chose to return and raise her 3 small children and serve God. And I quote, "I just knew that I could not stay in heaven because my babies needed me. I had made a pact with God to raise them in church." Unquote. Mary also reported that during her near-death experience, she was shown many wonderful things and felt a special energy go through her. When asked if there was anything negative in her experience in heaven, she replied, it was when she was given the knowledge of how many more innocent babies are aborted daily. She reported seeing an untold number of abortion babies. Jesse, I saw aborted children in heaven. One day, during a writing break, I happened to tune into a program featuring Jesse Duplantis, an enthusiastic minister on cable television, who shared a remarkable personal experience, which he also reported in his book, Heaven, Close Encounters of the God Kind, from which the following is taken.
In August 1988, I was preaching a revival meeting in Magnolia, Arkansas. After lunch with another minister, I felt a strange urgency and excused myself, explaining I needed to return to my motel room. I knew that something was up. I could feel the Lord preparing me for something, but I did not know what. When I got back to my room, I hung a Do Not Disturb sign on the doorknob and closed the door. I pulled off my coat and knelt down beside the bed. As I did, the digital clock flipped over to show exactly 1 o'clock. I said, "God, what's the matter? What's wrong?" What's happening? What? Suddenly, I felt a suction as I was being pulled up out of the room. I was zooming along at a phenomenal rate of speed. I was in an enclosure like a cable car, but it was also like a chariot without a horse. As we were moving along, I looked up. There stood another being, an angel. I asked, "Where are we going?" The angel smiled and said, "You have an appointment with the Lord God Jehovah." I felt the chariot slowing down, then it came to a stop. When the door opened, I experienced the shock of my life. I was in heaven. I saw light that I'd never seen before in my life. This was a beautiful land. Trees were lined up alongside the river of life. There were flowers in heaven that I'd never seen before and fragrances I had never smelled. Everyone seemed to be headed towards God's throne in the holy city, which I could see way off in the distance. His throne was high and lifted up, and it could be seen from every direction. As we continued along, all of a sudden I heard kids singing and praising God. Then I saw them. I asked the angel, "Where did these kids come from?" "These are children that the earth did not want," he said. "God brought them here." Then I asked, "Are you talking about abortions?" He said, "Yes, these children can't wait to see their mothers." All of a sudden, I saw a light coming out of the city, but it was far from me. The children ran toward the light. I knew then that it was Jesus. I could not see his face, but I could see his hands reaching out to the kids as they played and sang and hugged him. Those kids adored him. Then I heard him say, "Suffer the children to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of God." Mark 10:14. Jesus is beautiful. Not just handsome, but beautiful. When I looked into him, I saw love and kindness. He is love. He can look right through a person. His eyes are like pools of love, and he is the color of light. Then I said to Jesus, "You took care of all these aborted babies, didn't you?" "I never lose any of them," he said.
Cherie, a field full of white cradles. My colleague Kathy found Cherie's website and informed me about it. Cherie has seen all of her children in announcing dreams before they were born. Her first pregnancy ended in the premature birth of her son Marshall, who lived only 2 months.
One day, before I became pregnant with my 7th child, I was visiting with a friend in our living room. Suddenly, my friend said in a quiet voice, "Sherry, there are spirits here." She experienced this right along with me. My deceased son Marshall appeared and stood before me. Then Marshall stepped aside, and there was standing in front of me a child I had never seen. This child said, "I beg entry into your family." I agreed instantly, as we were always willing to have more children. As if I'd never responded, he again said, "I beg entry into your family." I agreed again, beginning to wonder why the repetition. Again, a third time he spoke, "I beg entry into your family." This time I explained in detail that we would be happy to have him, that we want as many children as the Lord is willing to send us. Let me add that this was not a vision. It was discerning through the veil that had thinned. My friend experienced this with me up to this point, but after the third agreement on my part, as I spoke these words, the heavens opened up to me, and I saw Jesus Christ standing by a beautiful tree. Then he took me to a field that was full of white cradles. Inside the cradles were babies, many, many babies. Some, but not all of the babies, held a piece of paper clutched in their hands. He said, "These are the cast-off ones," meaning those who had been purposely aborted. My presence is all that keeps their grief from overwhelming them. Their blood cries to me from the earth. Then, as I looked at the babies and the paper some held in their hands, he said to me, "That paper represents the willingness of mothers." He said it as a title. It meant the willingness of any woman to have children, even the ones who could not have children because of illness or age, but who in their hearts would have children if they could. Then he said, "It is the willingness of mothers to someday have them that gives them hope." Suddenly the vision closed, and I again saw the boy in front of me. This time he said, I am a cast-off one, and I beg entry into your family." I said yes. Instantly there appeared in his hand that white paper. Then he looked at me and said, "My name is Joshua, and I bring with me an extension of your life." Joshua was now at peace, knowing that I already loved him and would not reject him. His pleadings ceased, he disappeared, and I found myself back in my home with my friend. From the details she described as a second witness, I was fortified concerning the validity of the experience. Joshua had vanished from my sight, but it did not end with that. When I became pregnant with my next child, I would frequently see Joshua. Often standing with him was a young woman whom I had seen in vision long before I saw Joshua. One time she informed me that because Joshua was coming to our family, she wanted to come too. She said that where they were, she had been caring for Joshua, and she wanted to be in the same family as he so she could continue caring for him. She is my sweet Cheyenne, who was born after Ryan. The Lord always knew that I would welcome each little life. My childbearing years have passed, but I know that the time will come when we will welcome Joshua into our family. I wonder if he will be one of Cheyenne's sons. Time and the Lord will tell.